What happens when a tired elephant leads a mortally wounded calf to a lonely old woman in the middle of the scorched savanna? When armed guards appear, it seems there is no chance, but what happened next turned everything upside down and forever changed those who saw it. I know what you're thinking. An old lady? Alone? In the middle of scorched Africa? Feeding elephants like it's her backyard barbecue? Well, yeah. Welcome to my Tuesday. My name's Ellen Margaret Dorsey. Folks in the village call me Nana Ellie. Cute, right? Like some sweet lady who knits socks and bakes banana bread. Well, the banana part's not far off, but I don't knit. I survive. And right now, survival in this place is more rare than rain in the Mojave. Every morning, before the sun turns your spine into toast, I drag this busted metal cart out of my crooked shed, load it with a cracked plastic bowl, some squashed fruit, and 3 jugs of water. Then I march straight into no man's land, a burnt smoking patch of what used to be savanna. Now it looks more like a parking lot for the apocalypse. I do this because no one else will. The animals, the real locals, are thirsty, burned, lost. And the only help they're getting is from a lady whose bones click like maracas when she walks. Today I made it to my usual tree stump, still standing, bless its stubborn soul. I set down the fruit, poured the water, wiped my face with a rag that used to be white. Then it happened. Out of that ugly haze of ash and smoke came something big. Real big. Not fast, more like regret on 4 legs. I squinted hard and nearly dropped my water jug. It was a bull elephant. His skin looked like it had been sandblasted by a blowtorch. 1 tusk snapped in half, 1 ear torn like paper. There were patches of raw skin where the fire had kissed him a little too long. And his eyes. Lord help me. Those eyes were the saddest damn thing I'd ever seen, like he'd watched the world end and got left behind. He didn't charge. He didn't trumpet, just walked, 1 heavy step at a time, and he didn't look at the water or the fruit or the smoking horizon. He looked at me. Now I've stared down plenty of men who thought they were God's gift to justice, and I've won every time, mostly with words sharp enough to file a nail. But this wasn't a stare. This was a request, silent, heavy, begging. So I did what I do best. I talked. "Hey there, big guy," I said, my voice cracking like dry wood. "You look like you've had a week." He kept walking, closer now, just 10 feet between us. "Now don't go knocking me over," I muttered. "I may be old, but I bite." Then he stopped, inches from the water bowl. And instead of drinking, he did something so human I swear my heart skipped a beat. He reached his trunk and touched my knee. Now, I'm not one for drama. Okay, that's a lie. But this moment, it wasn't just dramatic. It was holy. And then he turned. He showed me his side, gently lifting his leg and flapping what was left of his ear. And tucked beneath him, under all that wrecked skin and dust, was a calf, a baby elephant, barely breathing, charred, quiet, and clinging to his father's leg like it was the only thing left in the universe. I swear to you, I stopped breathing. "You carried him? All this way?" I whispered, tears springing out before I could wipe them. The bull nodded. Not a big movement, but deliberate. He knew what he was doing, and I knew what I had to do. I dipped my rag in the bowl and crept forward. Slowly, gently, like I was walking on prayers. As I wiped the calf's face, he flinched, then relaxed. His tiny trunk curled around my wrist. And the bull? He didn't move, just stood there, watching, trusting. It was the first time in years I felt like someone trusted me with something that mattered. But peace never lasts long in places like this. Because just as I reached for more water, I heard tires, then headlights, then the worst sound of all, smug laughter. "Well, well, well," a man's voice sneered. "Look what we got here. Elephant whisperer with a death wish." I didn't even turn. "Private property," he barked. "These ain't your animals. Back away, Grandma." That's when I stood. My knees cracked like gunshots, but I didn't care. "They ain't yours either," I snapped. "And if you don't like it, you're welcome to leave faster than you came." He chuckled. "Lady, I've got a rifle. What have you got?" I looked at the baby, then the bull, then back at him. A whole lot of reasons not to miss. That shut him up, but just for a second, because then, and I mean right then, things went from tense to terrifying. To be continued. What happened next changed everything. You do not want to miss how this unfolds. Let me tell you something about men with rifles and small egos. They talk louder than they shoot until they don't. And this guy? He was the kind that polishes his boots more than his soul. He stepped out of the dusty pickup like he owned the continent. Sunglasses at sunset, tight vest, and that trademark smirk. You know the kind. Like life's a poker game and he thinks he's holding all the aces. "You're interfering with company property," he said, tapping the barrel of his gun against the truck door. "Company?" I raised an eyebrow. "I thought we were standing in what used to be a continent, not your weekend ranch." He smirked wider. "This whole area's been leased. Fire clearance, agricultural development. You wouldn't understand." Oh, I understood. I'd read enough development signs to know it was all just lipstick on bulldozers. Meanwhile, the bull didn't move. He stood perfectly still, trunk hanging low, massive chest heaving in silence. The calf behind him shuddered, a weak gasp for air, and here I was, in between two ticking clocks, a dying baby and a trigger-happy clown. "I'll give you 10 seconds to walk away," he said, starting to count like I was some unruly teenager at Walmart. I stepped forward. "You shoot at this elephant," I said, pointing straight at his smug face, "and I swear I'll make you so famous you'll wish you'd stayed anonymous. Ever heard of social media, sweetheart? I've got friends who can make sure your name hits every inbox from here to Sacramento." He hesitated. One twitch, one flicker of doubt. That's when backup arrived, but not mine. Another truck pulled up, 2 more men, one with a camera. Great. These weren't just trespassers. They were contractors, licensed, documented, backed by signatures and stamps from some office 500 miles away. "Ma'am," said the second man, more polite but no less robotic, "you're trespassing on a restricted regeneration zone. Wildlife is being relocated for their own safety." "Relocated?" I scoffed. "You mean chased off, herded into fences, or worse?" The politeness evaporated. "This elephant's interfering with controlled terrain. If it's injured, we'll handle it." I turned back toward the bull. He hadn't flinched, just watched, like he knew this wasn't his first eviction notice. "Try handling him," I muttered. "See what happens." Then, without a word, and I swear I'm not making this up, the bull did something that made every hair on my neck stand up. He let out a low, guttural rumble, deep, resonant, like thunder from the inside of the earth. And suddenly the trees behind us shook. From the edge of the blackened horizon came a second rumble, then a third. One by one, silhouettes emerged. First 1, then 2, then 5. Elephants, a whole cluster, silent, charred, watching. They didn't charge, didn't roar, but their presence was enough to turn the mood from cocky to cold. The men backed up. You could see it in their eyes. Math was happening. Too many targets, too little control. The first guy gritted his teeth. "Fine," he growled. "Keep your dying pet. But if we find you out here again..." "You'll what?" I snapped. "Report me for compassion?" He didn't answer. Just spat in the dirt, climbed in the truck, and slammed the door. The tires spun up dust, but not fast enough to cover the shame hanging over the scene like a bad smell. They left, and I dropped to my knees, shaking harder than I'd admit under oath. I touched the calf's forehead. His breathing was thinner now. The bull looked down at me, not as a warning, but as a plea. And then I knew. Help wasn't coming. Not from systems, not from suits, not from policies printed in boardrooms. If anyone was going to save this calf or this family, it had to start right here, with one old woman, one bowl of water, and the kind of will that doesn't back down just because the odds look ugly. But then, just as I reached for more water, I heard something behind me. No tires, no trucks. This time it was something alive, something fast, something not friendly. This is the turning point. Everything you've waited for. It's right here. Stay with me to see how one moment pushed everything to the edge. You ever feel time stop? Not in a poetic wine glass in the sunset kind of way. I mean actually stop, like the air holds its breath and even the bugs shut up. That's what happened when I turned and saw her, a lioness, skinny, drenched in ash, eyes wide, glazed with that frantic fire survivor look. She wasn't hunting, not in the usual way. She was running, from something, and she wasn't alone. 3 cubs stumbled behind her, trembling shadows that barely kept pace. And she? She was limping, one leg dragging like it belonged to someone else. Now, if you're new to nature, let me clarify. Lions don't usually jog politely past elephants. Especially not bulls, especially not wounded bulls guarding their calves. But today, nothing was usual. The lioness froze when she saw us. Me, the bull, the baby. Her cubs collapsed like overcooked spaghetti behind her, chests rising too fast. I stood there holding a rag soaked in warm elephant sweat and dust, thinking, fantastic. From fire to rifles to felines. Why not throw in a tornado and make it a party? The bull lifted his head. No panic, just calculation. He didn't move toward her. But he didn't back down either. For a second, I expected a showdown. One of those raw, brutal ones you see on documentaries where everything ends in a dust cloud and screaming. But she didn't charge. She did something different. She lay down, right there, not 20 feet from us, collapsed like a deflated tire, one paw still twitching, tail barely lifting off the ground. Her breathing was ragged, uneven. Her cubs didn't move. And I realized they weren't a threat. They were refugees. Smoke from the distance made the air taste like burnt rubber. And somewhere out there, the fire line was crawling closer. Trees were falling. Ash drifted like snowflakes with a grudge. We weren't in the wild anymore. We were in the wreckage of it, and suddenly I saw it. The full picture, the burned elephant, the half-dead calf, the lioness with her shattered pride. All of them driven here to this sad excuse of a safe patch, not by instinct, but by desperation. And what did they find when they got here? An old woman with a bowl of water and a cart with one wobbly wheel. Congratulations, Ellen. You're now running the last rest stop in hell. I dropped the rag, turned to the bull, and spoke like I was explaining to a stubborn uncle at a holiday dinner. Listen here, big guy. We need help. Real help, and unless you can dial a phone with that trunk, I'm all we've got. He didn't blink, and I did what any irrational sunburnt senior with too much heart and too few boundaries would do. I stood up, pulled out my phone, and went live. Yep, full stream. Bad hair, dirty hands, ash on my teeth, didn't care. I pointed the camera at the bull, then the baby, then the lioness, then those exhausted cubs. This, I said, my voice shaking, is what's left after the permits, after the fires, after the bulldozers and the boardrooms. I paused. And if you're watching this and still think nature can survive without us doing something, then you've got less heart than this elephant right here. Comments flooded in within seconds. People asking where I was, offering money, some demanding action. A few called it fake. One man asked if it was a movie. Yeah, buddy. It's called real life, and the cast is dying. Within the hour, it spiraled. A ranger from the next province showed up, then a veterinarian, then a small, dusty caravan of local volunteers. Kids, elders, even that one cranky guy who once threatened to shoot my radio for playing jazz too loud. They didn't come with much, but they came with enough. The baby was lifted. carefully with blankets soaked in cool water. The cubs got hydration packs. The lioness received a tranquilizer, just enough to calm her down and let her rest. And the bull? He never moved. Not until the calf was safely in the trailer. Then, and only then, he reached out, touched my shoulder with his trunk, and walked away. Slowly, proudly, into the smoke. No fanfare, no Disney music, just quiet steps from a creature who knew he'd done his part. And me? Well, I stood there in the dirt, tears and dust mixing on my face, thinking how the world almost let this happen in silence. Almost. Some stories don't need a happy ending, just a real one. But sometimes, you get both. If you felt something reading this, don't scroll away. Share it. Let someone else know. Compassion still matters.